Hi, guys. Today we're going to talk a lot about these executive orders that Trump signed. Today is the 21st, so that'd be yesterday. And we're going to do several of those little type of videos. I'm going to walk you through a few of the main ones that I really want to kind of, play after. So a couple of them we're going to put together. The first one here is on the international monetary policy. Okay, so we're not going to make them super long, but I do want to kind of show you. So
Presidential
when he's
memoranda
signing
and
these
others.
executive orders here, you're seeing him, and first off, he did them in the Capital One Center, and I guess that's the Washington Capitals and Wizards. And so he's in that center. First, they went and did the rally the day before, the day of. They come back and he does it in front of everyone. There's a transparency that he's trying to create. Now he does a second set of executive orders that he does this in the White House, and then he spends 48 minutes letting them ask questions. And so this is just fascinating when you realize what's going on here with this too. And I know some of you are like looking for, the magic, the silver bullet in essence, not magic, the silver bullet here to explain everything. But the reality is we're almost there. You got to hold on here because it's coming. Okay, so let's show you the first one of these ones we're going to talk about today. And this one is that he did this later on at night. So, and it's a really interesting statement, organizing the economic cooperation and development of global tax deal. You go, okay, what the flock, right? He first talks about the trade issue, right? And then he identifies in here a global tax deal. So wait, there's a new tax coming, right? But note this, the Secretary of Treasury, he puts the Treasury Secretary like on stage first. I think it's Bissett, if I remember right, but I could be wrong on that exact. And the permanent representative of the United States. Who's the permanent representative of the United States? I just got to tell you, we don't know every little piece of this, but it's like, who the flock is that one, right? You look at this and you're going, okay, so it's a cooperative conversation, right? And options for protecting the discriminatory extraterritorial tax measures. So in essence, we're talking about some tax measures that have been affecting America in a lot of different ways. And I'll show you more about that in a second. I want you to focus on this one here on a couple areas. First off, it's granted to an executive department or agency. So then it's first kind of setting that up. Okay, so then this is the basic overall setup for this particular area. Now, let's look at the American trade policy next. So this one also has Treasury, Defense, Commerce, Secretary of State, Homeland, or HSA, and the budget people. By the way, almost no one brings up the budget people. Why? Because Nancy Pelosi and all the speakers before her or after her have never wanted people to know what the budget was. I've talked to senators and congressmen, congresswomen who have told me that that they were around a budget and it was scheduled for Tuesday, let's say, and suddenly it's not on, and you're like, what? What happened? Oh, well, we had an emergency issue, and they never really got back to it. They never told you what the budget is. That's when they came out with these 1,500-page things that was stripped down to 116 pages or something like that. Just craziness, right? Okay, so it's talking about America First policy. So he's referring back to 2017 when he started some of the economic things, right? He's talking about real median household wealth. And there's destructive trade deficits that have affected people. So this is a little bit about some fascinating points that you might look at in here with us too. I want you to focus on Section E. So as we look at Section E, this is where I think it gets super fascinating. Secretary Treasury shall review and assess the policies and practices of major United States trading partners with respect to the rate change between their currencies and the US dollar pursuant to codes, right? A recommendation, appropriate measures to counter the currency manipulation and misalignment. What? That's actually putting the central bank underneath the Treasury, or the Fed underneath Treasury. Have I not told you guys that? If you've listened to me over and over again, we talked about in 2020, the PPP loans put the Fed underneath the Treasury Department. And in essence, what he's saying is the central banks are in misalignment to what the United States are doing. And he's telling the Secretary of Treasury to do this, right? And he wants to have balanced payment adjustments, or provide trading partners with the unfair competitive advantage. And now, obviously, he's putting America first. But I'm going to tell you, this is NESARA every way, shape, and form. It shall identify countries that he believes should be designed as currency manipulators. Now, you might think, well, that's putting the BRICS people under the gun. Is it? Or is it talking about a balanced way of looking at using this executive order, balancing out the trade points here? Oh my gosh. Let's go over and we'll pull that off the screen. Sorry, it takes a second. And I want to pull this up on the screen. This is something I created a while ago here. And you can go to drscottyoung.com and you can download this very simply. It's called My Response to the QFS. And so one of the things that happens with the QFS is that it's a decentralized ledger system, okay? And it replaces the SWIFT and central banks. Well, isn't that kind of what we're talking about here? What it is, a little bit closer, let's get into the difference here of what it is not. Oh, let's talk about this one. What we suspect with it. It's a blockchain distributed ledger system. So basically, it says that we can track everything, right? It may use the cryptos involved with it. There is a Bitcoin Act that really could be QFS in 5 seconds, and we've talked about this in other ways. But it's talking about bank transfers, right? It's how we actually do the systems out there. And so I talk all about this in different ways so that you have a clue about this. Now we go back over here and we say, wait a second, the currency manipulation and misalignment. And he starts off with this really interesting conversation about massive we're looking for a stable supply chains, massive economic growth, historically low inflation. And I ask you this one question, and I want you to kind of hear me as we end this little part here. How do you fix inflation? I'll pause here for a second. I just had this conversation with a guy who doesn't believe any of this stuff. He actually is a guy that I had talked to originally. Some of you remember me talking about him, and he didn't believe anything about the debt points. None of it. I mean, he would just cross his arms and get really mad, right? And it's fascinating because he felt like it was unfair. I get it. I understand what his viewpoint was. And yet, when we talk about the Bible, he was fine with that, right? So, and here's what happens. The other day, I was talking with him, and he was wondering a little bit more about, what I thought about some of the things that are going on. I'm like, listen, the External Revenue Service is another way of saying Internal Revenue Service is going away. Like, if you have to take away a revenue stream from America, where are you going to get it? And right now, we're already at a $1.8 trillion under budget point. And you might say, well, then that's Doge. Is it? No. Here's the point. What happens inside of what we're seeing here is that they're talking about keeping the wages up. Let me show you again. Keeping the wages up here, the real median household wealth, and eliminating trade deficits. We're talking about, substantial increase to real wages. What is real wages? That's called buying power. We're not talking about, he's talking about like making wages higher, but real wages. What is really given to you? That's called buying power. And that only happens when you kill off inflation. And you go, well, how do you do that? How do you come over here, as we look at his little conversation here that he puts in here, and having balances between the countries who designate currency manipulators? He's talking about a gold-backed currency and everyone else being on the same playing field. He's talking about all playing by the same rules, which is called NESARA and NESARA. Guys, we have some proof that this stuff is happening, but it's a little hard to decode. I understand. We're going to talk more about these kind of things as we go. But it really helps if you will go through and you'll like and subscribe and tell other friends about it. Thanks so much.